Malcolm, 20 years, $2 trillion spent, nearly 3,000 soldiers killed in the country. There are folks, some who are saying, we gained nothing out of this. The Taliban is back in charge. Do you agree with that assessment? Was it wise for the United States to go into Afghanistan? And what the hell happened here that the intelligence community thought that it would be 60, 90 days that this would actually happen when it was a mere several days?
Well, first off, we had a mission to go into Afghanistan in 2001, which was to take down the support structure of al-Qaeda, which, by the way, at that time in the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan was actually running the training programs for the Taliban. They essentially were organizing and maintaining professionalism in the Taliban's military forces at that time. That mission was accomplished relatively quickly. We routed al-Qaeda's forces, and then by February 2002, the Bush administration completely changed its sights about what it actually was doing. They started going, of course, planning to invade Iraq. And all of the resources that had flowed into Afghanistan, all of the forces that were in that region completely shifted away from Afghanistan towards Iraq. Now, it was always folly to think that we were going to come in there and create our own country based on our values, our morals, despite how the people on the ground live there. It is a very simple country. I went in very soon after 9/11, right after the Tora Bora operations, and it was very clear to me that the people on the ground there wanted some fundamental things that just worked well with the Taliban. The right to live by their own culture, within their culture, because the Taliban were Afghans. The right to worship their God in the way that they wanted to, which was fundamental Islamic, and of course, to maintain the prosperity that they could understand from the culture they lived in and get, future prosperity, which for them was getting their sons married, right? Having children, grandchildren, getting their sons married. They were not looking to go drive around in Camaros. The most they wanted, perhaps, was a few more goats, perhaps a donkey, even often the pie in the sky, a pickup truck to help their little farms. But that is not something we offered. We offered to restructure the entire country precisely like the Soviet Union did when they invaded Afghanistan in the late 1970s and wanted to remake this. That image of trying to remake it is what created this one-year cycle every year of saying everything's going great, the armed forces are holding it, we're rebuilding Afghanistan. When the number $2 trillion dropped, that was the effort that we put into Afghanistan. It's absolutely phenomenal that we did that. That money went into the coffers of the political elite, the con men, and the billionaires who were all living in Abu Dhabi and Dubai when they flew out in their executive jets here a couple of days ago. To answer your second question, the armed forces of Afghanistan was a paper army. Quite a bit of it was. Yes, there were many fighters who were very good. Yes, there were a lot of interpreters and logistic support people who helped us greatly. But for the most part, many of the officers were corrupt. Many of the senior leadership in the armed forces were corrupt. The military, all the money, 60, 70 billion we were putting in a year, that money was just getting stolen. An enormous amount of that money went to U.S. government contractors. And when we ended our operations, all of those contractors supporting the Afghan army disappeared. The Afghans cut a deal with the Taliban. That's how this country collapsed in a matter of days. The Taliban in some provinces were had cut these deals with the local tribal leaders and perhaps even some of the provincial governors, and were sending representative groups of men, some of their terror cells that were underground, 20, 30, 40 guys, going to the province house and declaring the province captured. There was no real war or linear, battlefield, showing mobile battles of them actually winning victories. The few places they did attack, the soldiers left and went home. That should sound familiar because that's what the Iraqi army did in 2001 or 2002 when we invaded Afghanistan. 2003, sorry about that.
But then you hear the fear of what's going to happen to women and children there. We already are seeing some of these videos. You're already seeing people talk about the human rights abuses. And so then the question is, what should have been done? First of all, was our military properly prepared to extract people from the country? Could we have avoided these scenes? Should the United States military have sealed off this airport and had it under its control to be able to coordinate flights out and things along those lines? What should have been done to avoid the chaos over the weekend and what's still happening right now?
I'm sorry, you were always going to have that chaos. So now it's time for a little history lesson, because one of the things that I mentioned on air over the last couple of days is quite simply this. Americans are culturally ignorant of other peoples, and they don't understand that those peoples have a vote in what happens out there. And many of those, again, the reason that that airport was surrounded so quickly and flooded, many of those people who are Taliban today were Afghan National Army 3 days ago, right? So should we have done this? Yes. There could have been an enormous quantity of preparation, but the United States Armed Forces cannot bend space and time to our will and suddenly have 100 transport aircraft there. We had been mobilizing a few days ago, 3 or 4 days ago, to bring in 6,000 to 7,000 troops into that region. But many of the commanders surrendered their forces. The government left. The Taliban took their few hundred men and drove in from Jalalabad or came up from Kandahar, which is an 8-hour drive, and were there before any resources could flow into that place. Should we have been better prepared? Absolutely. Will Joe Biden have to take a hit for that? He said the buck stops with him. But the most important part of this story is the fact that this was negotiated years ago by the Trump administration. They gave the Taliban Afghanistan. The Taliban did not attack us or kill U.S. forces as part of that agreement in exchange for 5,000 of the most hardcore Taliban members and leadership to be released back into the Taliban, and they are all there. The president of Taliban, of the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan today, is a person who was released under that deal. The Taliban were just waiting because it was given to them. The Afghan people who were there, the tribal leadership, were waiting for them as well and waiting to surrender. So we could not have, unless you listen to guys like me, right? The mid-level intelligence guys, the low-level intelligence guys who say, these guys are going to run it the first shot. Well, we had more faith in that. But as Secretary of Defense Austin said, you can't buy faith and you can't train in faith and you can't buy loyalty. And their loyalty is to their immediate families. They are now going to drop those uniforms, go home, buy a couple of more camels, a couple of more goats with the money they had. And before you think that that's a stereotype, that is a real thing, okay? And they are going to live their lives. The Taliban will establish a national government across the tribal areas, and they will go right back to 2001. But Roland, one last point. I mentioned history. This happened to the British in 1842. The only problem is in the first British-Afghan War is that all British forces in Kabul were slaughtered. Only 3 survivors out of a 2,000-man force. And they let those 3 survivors go into Pakistan to let them know what they had done to them. The British tried this in the 1890s again, the Russians in the 1980s. Look, you just have to learn these lessons. Don't go to a place that you don't understand. It should have been Americans that spoke Dari and Pashto, not having to hire interpreters. We don't do that. We run in and we use, with cultural ignorance, and we expect things to go our way.
Malcolm Nance, always a pleasure. Thanks for the breakdown. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment. Ceek.com. We are partnering with them, of course. We appreciate their support right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Check out a couple of their products that you can take advantage of.
Performance on Ceek. Bon Jovi, and you're watching us on Ceek.
What's going on? This Quavo Huncho, but right now you in the Huncho's world. Please let the music play.
Enjoy the Ceek.com video by using one of their virtual reality headsets. All you do is just pop your phone right here into the VR headset and enjoy the content. You can also take advantage of their 360-degree headphones. These headphones here come in a couple of colors, black and gold, but then also all gold. And so you can check these out. If you want to use our promo code to get a discount, it's RMVIP21, RMVIP21. Then, of course, a portion of the proceeds comes back to Roland Martin Unfiltered, which allows for us to fund the show. And so this is a black-owned company, and we certainly believe in supporting black-owned companies. Mary Spiel is the founder. And so, again, go to Ceek.com and use the promo code RMVIP21.